Hey, welcome back. Business 163, Personal Finance, and this is now video 4 in module number 6 on spending. We're giving you some things to think about as we think about the challenge of controlling our spending and bringing it under the control and deliberate plan of our budget, right? We're trying to give you some examples of ways that it's easy to get out of control. And so some areas where we need to consider our spending and how to approach our spending just to make sure that it aligns with the budget that we spent the last couple of weeks in Module 5 preparing. So as you can see in this particular video, we're looking at the topic of food and spending. And so while we've mentioned this before, we actually want to talk a little bit about actual strategies to bring our spending on food into alignment with our budget. And we want to acknowledge, hey, didn't we already talk about this? What are we talking about it again? Yes, we did already talk about it. So, I don't think we need to remind you that food is probably the number one area where people overspend without even knowing it. That's just statistically true. It may be true for many of us right here in this class. And so I don't need to remind you that's true, but instead in this video, let's come up with a plan then. Let's figure out, now that we have a budget, how do we keep our food spending under control? You can see here, right? One example to look really hard at is, well, how often do we have food delivered, as we have in, this picture right here on this slide, this guy delivering food, either a DoorDash driver or a pizza delivery guy, something like that, right? So, what is one of the best, easy ways to start getting your food spending under control? Make a plan ahead of time, especially make it when you're not hungry. Okay, but you can see here the image of this lady making a plan here. What kind of plan are we talking about? Well, the big plan. How often this month do you want to buy prepared food? In other words, food that you don't cook, that you don't have already at home. How often do you want to buy food that someone else has prepared for you? And there's different ways that's done, right? Restaurants, takeout, but anyway, how often do you want to buy prepared food? That will vary depending on who you are, your life, and your skills, and your preferences, right? So there are folks who are so busy with their job and schedule and life that they cannot cook every night. They don't have the time in their life to do that. And this is not particularly a class. Business 163 is not a class on time management, so we're not going to address that in this class. However, you do need to come up with a plan. How often do you want to buy prepared food that month? Remembering that you have already committed to a personal budget. And conversely then, once you've decided that, you can also decide how often do you want to cook at home. Okay, how often do you want to buy prepared food? How often do you want to prepare the food yourself? And then what you get to decide is how much money are you going to allocate to each side of that equation, right? To the time and the occasions where you want to buy prepared food versus the time and occasions that you want to cook at home. In all of this, we would suggest to you, although this is not a personal nutrition class, that you should be trying to align this and answer the question, what to you is a nutritious diet? We do not pretend to be able to give you that information in Business 163. There are lots and lots of places where you can start to adopt a philosophy on what is a nutritious diet to you, and do the research, do the reading, read the science. We're not arguing for any of those kinds of things. All we're saying is, to you, what's a nutritious diet? And now that that's established, right, how often do you want to accomplish and achieve that diet by eating prepared food versus how much do you want to cook at home? Again, make this plan ahead of time when you're not hungry. Then, once you've got the plan written down, for the food that someone else cooks for you, the prepared food, well, how often do you want to, eat out at a nice restaurant, or eat out at a casual dining establishment, or have prepared food delivered to you, DoorDash or similar, or drive out someplace and go pick up takeout? How often do you want to do that? And when you go out, how much do you want to spend? All of this, of course, that last question, right, should be dictated by your already calculated budget. So now you're breaking it down, right? Now you are dictating and controlling where you want your money spent rather than realizing at the end of the month where it happened to go, right? So in the spirit of that, we want you to be able to deliberately commit to how much money is going to be spent on prepared food, right? And then the other half of the equation then, how much money is going to be spent on food you prepare yourself? What about cooking at home? And here's some honest questions you'll need to answer. What can you cook? There's no point trying to plan for stuff you don't know how to make, right? What can you cook? And then that asks the next question, what can you learn to cook? And that, let me just interject here. That can be a really interesting, fascinating personal pursuit. It's turned into a bit of a hobby of mine. Quite frankly, I lived for 10 years as a bachelor and didn't cook that many things. Quite frankly, it didn't feel motivated. My kids had moved out. They were adults or living on their own. I was no longer married. Hey, single guy, I can go eat out and, those kinds of things, right? Take home a lot. And so I didn't cook that many different foods. However, now I've found it's a fascinating hobby of mine. I've cooked all sorts of stuff I never would have dreamed of being able to cook before. I've learned how to cook things like beef Wellington. I've learned how to cook duck. I've learned how to cook more vegetarian and vegan meals even though I'm not a committed vegetarian or vegan. My stepdaughter is. My wife tends to eat more vegetarian than not during the week. And so it's been a wonderful life's journey, learning a little more how to cook, different ways to cook, and being surprised and sometimes delighted at the results. So for you as well, you may have to figure out what does that look like for you with the time you have available. But I would urge you, don't simply be resigned to the things you know how to cook today. Learn to cook a few other things. It's a life skill that will take you a long way. Now, returning to the slide, if I can cook these things, and if I want to learn eventually how to cook a few more, what will I need to cook at home? And, this may include some things like some tools or spices or an inventory of things in the pantry, but more than that, it's the easiest way to be able to cook at home is to have intelligent shopping trips so you have everything you need to cook that dish already in the pantry and the fridge, right? So again, we're talking about prior planning to take control of your habits and life, right? If you are now dealing with the other half of your life where you're cooking food for yourself, what do I need to have at home in order to accomplish this? And therefore, that means an intelligent, well-planned trip to the market, right? A trip to the market that starts with a shopping list. There's few things more frustrating in life than going to the store, going shopping, paying for it, coming home and realizing, oops, I forgot to buy 3 essential ingredients because I didn't have a list and I just forgot, okay? But as you go more and more to the grocery store, you will be able to do a better job at comparison shopping, at being able to recognize what's the price of things, and therefore, do I need to be flexible? Hey, it looks like at this particular store, buying this particular type of parsley, well, quite frankly, it's pretty expensive here for some reason. Maybe I can be flexible and buy another alternative that will taste just as good and still be able to keep me within my budget, right? Over time, you will learn the price of things. You'll learn why it is that, hey, maybe it's a good idea not to insist on sun-kissed branded oranges, right? As we talked about a couple videos ago, right? Maybe it's time for you to consider, if you don't already, buying some things in bulk from Costco or Sam's Club. And wait a minute, I'm a single person. I don't need 16 rolls of toilet paper. Hey, that's awesome, but your friend's gonna need toilet paper eventually. So maybe it's time to come up with a little agreement. You go shopping at Costco and split the purchase with a friend, right? There's lots of ways to accomplish these kinds of things, right? But getting control of your food budget starts with intelligent shopping at the grocery store, as well as a written plan on how you're going to conduct your food life. This is one of the most important things I think that you'll find in your life, to be able to say, hey, you know, I'm not just sort of the tail wagging the dog. I just kind of eat when I'm hungry, and holy smokes, at the end of the month, I'm not really eating that nutritious, and I don't really feel all that good, and all my money's gone, right? But rather, if you're actually created a budget and therefore have a food budget, the best way that I know of to stay committed and within your means in terms of your stated food budget is to have a plan, to stick with the plan, and to develop this whole side of your life that says, hey, I can't cook every day, but the time that I do have to cook, I'm learning new things. Alrighty? I hope that's helpful. We'll see you in the next video.